there is no absolute blueprint to how to build a successful company. And a lot of founders are trying to solve problems which really don't exist.
Timing. You've been building this product for 2 years, the AI wave came in and you were ready to launch to ride that wave.
Like, irrespective of where you put me, whatever industry or in whatever field I would be in, I would just find meaning in the work itself.
And we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Nalikes Podcast. I'm Talha Asif, and in each episode, we bring you insightful conversations with the founders and builders who are shaping the future of Web3. Our goal here is to educate and inspire while showcasing what other successful founders are doing for their projects and startups. Make sure you watch till the end, as you will learn practical and actionable steps that you can apply to your startups today. Today's guest is Tyagi, who is the founder of Capex.ai. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
All good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I think we connected 2 years ago, and back then I think you were also building Capex. But
Yeah.
it's really good to see the progress that you've made in 2 years since when we connected last year. And this is a thing I like it about the space, that you can start really small and then you can get your way up there. So uh, thank you for coming on the show. And like we were talking about earlier before the call, is that the reason I'm doing this podcast is there are so many founders in this space who have some skill set, but they often lack the other skill set. Like someone might know how to raise, but they might not know how to build products. Someone might know how to build product, but they don't know how to get traction. So the whole purpose of this is to bring on people such as yourself, get to know from their experience and share with other founders. And I think that's how the space would grow, because eventually we need founders who can build good products. But before we jump into that, Tyagi, who are you?
Absolutely. So yeah, I got into space like many others. I think the whole wild west aspect of crypto kind of attracted me back in the day. It was late 2020 when I got into the space. It was mostly trading. Of course, back in the day, even before that, we were seeing a lot of new projects come in, a lot of new tokens getting launched. My exposure was still limited to, let's say, Binance. That's where I was mostly, getting to know more about crypto. So it was very retail centric. Then in 2021, one of my friends, who's also the co-founder of Capex, he called me up and he introduced me to the space, which is what blockchain is, what Web3 is. I would say that's how I got into it. I literally got pulled into it in 21 when I actively started building in the space. And initially, it was still like I'd say the 21 bull was still something which um, made sense to a degree, where we were seeing a lot of projects which were still shipping. But from everything that I heard and I got to learn and got to know about the space, it was that there was a lot to be built and lot to be shipped and lot to be, I would say, from a regulatory and compliance perspective, a lot of things were, like, a lot of guardrails were still to be put in. So it was definitely early back then. He comes from a lot of experience. He's been in the space for almost now 8 years. So he gave me a full download. He literally like red pilled me into the space, and we started Capex. And since then, there has been no turning back. We have been shipping together, building a lot of products. A lot of experiments were also done on the way, and we got to learn something from each and every one of them. But yeah, it's both of us know each other for almost a decade now. We went to the same university. He did computer science from VIT. I did electronics. So both of us graduated around the same time. Although previously I was still into products, but not into Web3. So most of my, I would say, early, late 2000, I would put, like, basically after graduation, I was mostly, building with a lot of founders, 0 to 1 journeys. I had a product innovation lab. So I used to essentially work with very early teams into building products from absolute zero, like from even ideation to, shipping and to actually getting the very first customers to finding some sort of product market fit. So that was me after graduation for like 3 to 4 years. I was in that space. I was building with founders, and then I was working very closely with founding teams. So my experience, as you said, like, how a lot of founders might be good at product, but might not be good at, selling the vision. And some might be really good at selling the vision, but maybe building a team and scaling their team might not be their strong suit. So that's where actually me and Hitesh, we complement each other. Hitesh is like really good at, really building a narrative, and he's great with respect to storytelling, and his ideas are like really prolific with respect to how can we, expand something as small as an app, which a third person might be able to see, but there is so much history, story, and then how it can expand into becoming the next category defining product in the space. So his ability to be able to do that and to be able to replicate and to move very fast with it is something which is commendable. And I come from from product background where I know the nitty-gritties of what really goes on, the small clogs, how to scale team, how to hire, and all those things. So together we basically made like a very good team. And yeah, that's basically my journey. That's how I started and got into the space.
I think we all have that one friend who pulls up, and in my case, it was my co-founder who showed me a picture of an ape, told me this monkey is worth millions. And I've talked about it several times on the podcast. So very interesting. So you were building products before Web3. One of your friends introduced you, and then together you combine your skill set and you start building. Before we start talking about what you were building, there's one question that I like to talk with founders, and I think that is very important, is that the motivations or the why someone is doing something, right? In most of the cases, it's either hunger in the belly or it's a chip on the shoulder, you have to prove something. So in your case, what's the driving factor, right? And then what can you share with other founders? Because in my case, it was purely the drive to have a better life. Initially, that was the start where I started putting to make money. And then, as you grow, your chains. But one thing that people don't talk about much is that, okay, on the outside, everything is great. You might raise money, you might build product, but what goes on internally is more important. So what do you think has been that driving force in your case? And how do you manage it on day-to-day basis, right? Because it's not easy to build companies. So do you want to share something on that?
Right. I think something which has always resonated with me is the fact that I've always found a lot of meaning in my work. Right from even when I was in college and I was doing some sort of freelance gigs, like, designing logos and websites for people, I used to like put in like a lot of time and effort as to just figuring out like what would actually work, and not just consider it like, even if it's like $100 logo, I would not just like, just design it and ship it and be like, okay, it's done. Like, I would want to spend a lot of time just understanding, because not because of any sort of love for that company, but just because it made me go into alleys which I've never explored. So just the act of that work itself has always been sort of my calling. And the best way that I could define this thing is that how people usually say that, I'm like a dog with a bone. I like, irrespective of where you put me, whatever industry or in whatever field I would be in, I would just find meaning in the work itself. And that just gives me a lot of, I would say it gives me a lot of joy. I become like a kid when I find something new toys to play with. And that has always been with me. Like, even when I got introduced to Web3, I was overwhelmed with the amount of information that was thrown. I mean, if Web2 works, like, Web3 timelines are very different. Like, a year in Web2 is like a month in Web3, right? So it was so much cognitive overload initially, and I was like trying to grasp the history of 10 years as well as trying to keep up with everything that was happening in the day. But even during that part, it was like I used to wake up every day with a smile on my face. I was like, oh my god, like I have so much to do, and that just gave a lot of meaning in just the work that I was doing. So I think that has been a motivator for me for everything.
So you would say
And
your curiosity is your driving force?
sort of, I would like to put it that way. Yeah, definitely.
Very interesting. Amazing. So, Vaibhav, you've been, so you got in the space, we can say like pure, mainly because of investing, right? And that's how mo most people start. But when was it you decided that I want to build products? Because I personally, I work with so many founders, and most of them are just doing it either for greed, either through, mimetics. If someone else is doing it, I want to do it. But there are very few who are actually trying to solve a problem. So how does that journey goes like from an investor to a builder? And then how do you figure out what to build and how do you have conviction in your ideas, right? Because finding PMF in the space is not easy. So it would be helpful if you can walk us through that journey and other P founders who might be watching are in this some sort of situation, how they can navigate through it.
Right. Um, I I don't think there's a definite blueprint to this. I mean, we can always go and find some sort of structure when we are reading books, when we are, let's say, listening to Mark Cuban, Naval Ravikant. But there is no absolute blueprint to how to build a successful company. I think all it takes is a lot of experiments, and I think that we ourselves, we at Capex, I think we are literally the poster boy of experiments because we have done a lot of them. Like even with respect to even for campaigns, even when it comes to hackathons, even when it comes to marketing or business development or partnerships, like we have literally gotten our hands dirty in every way possible. And I'm sure like there's still so many ways that we can, still keep on hustling and keep on working and, shipping different things. And it's all about like keep throwing things at the wall and see what sticks. Something which I've seen a lot of people fail at doing is that you get so married to your idea, and which is also important to a degree, but you have to find some components to play around with. You cannot be so set in stone with everything that you're doing that you forget that the idea is always to keep experimenting and playing around with the idea. So you have to, your vision should always be the same, I would say, when you're starting a company, and that's very that's something to look forward to in founders. But you should always have that room to, okay, maybe the business model can be pivoted, maybe your target group can be pivoted, maybe how you approach your target group can be pivoted. So your GTM will keep on changing unless you find the PMF. So I think that part has to be flexible, and every founder needs to be flexible with it. I think it all comes down to how fast can you work on an experiment and then move on to the next experiment. So if your shipping speed is 6 months, and in order to get like some sort of feedback or turnaround from the market is like another 3 months, then in 2 years you'll be able to do maybe two experiments. And that's too long, right? If you just this down into weeks, then your experiment time is now reduced to like maybe 8 weeks. And that gives you like the room to do six experiments in a year. So I think that's very important. Like this could be applied to anything. This could be applied to
Mhm.
sales, marketing, design. This could be applied to almost every aspect of your business. But this is something which I constantly see in the market with a lot of founders where they just get married to one thing and they just put
Yeah.
all their eggs in that basket, and they're like, everything else is wrong. I'm the only correct person in the world. That conviction is, of course, like integrity and conviction are very strong suits, and everyone should have them. But you have to leave some room for experiments and that sort of gray area where you're like, okay, maybe this didn't work, so I should quickly pivot and move on to the next
Got,
best thing.
got it. So the takeaway is that don't marry to your idea. Do as many experiments as possible, or as Y Combinator says, right?
Yeah,
Ship products and talk to your customers, and then improve it.
marry, yeah, marry the vision, but keep
Yeah,
room for experiments in the idea, at
yeah. So
least.
I'll go back one step, right? So you said that marry the vision, and my question was, which I'm trying to understand, is that the transition from being an investor to a builder in the space, and then choosing a problem to solve. Because most of the time, people are, in my experience, it has been the people who are trying to solve their own problem, or they're trying to solve a problem that they really know very well. So how has been your experience in figuring out, or or that was not the path you took? Like one step before the transition from an investor to a builder, and then figuring out what vision to go forward with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. For us, mostly it has been um, to find that gap in the market. I feel like there is like one approach is of course something which like you can work on something which is very close to your heart, and of course that uh, I feel like again the argument can be made that you can always engineer that, but finding a gap in the market is more important. A lot of times, again, this is something very common now that you can either try to find a problem or you can create a problem and be like, okay, I'll solve this, right? So I think that how you find that gap in the market is very important. And a lot of founders are trying to solve problems which really don't exist. So I think that part is something which has really worked for us. Every time we have picked a problem, we have spent a few weeks to a few months gauging the market, all our everyone in our circle, right from our parents to other investors to founders, and just throwing it at them and be like, okay, do you think this is a problem which needs to be solved? Do you think if we were to solve this way, it would work? So I think we have always taken the approach where we have if we are onto something, we are not just going to discuss it with four people and be like, oh, this is like $1 billion idea. We would actually take it to our within our circles, within the people that we know, and really ask them, engage them, and take even the criticism as well as the like whatever appreciation that we get around it. And that has really worked for us, that identifying a problem and a gap in the market and then working towards and around it. So the same thing I would say even today, what we are building, we spent around 6 months before we started shipping an actual product. We spent 6 months just to make sure that this is a real problem and just to gauge like how big of a market this can be. And when we started seeing the early signs, the sparks in the eyes of everyone that we were telling this about, we knew that we were onto something. So it took us, like, we had planned like a more like longer period of time to like experiment with it, but we knew in the very initial months that this is going to be huge. Even like people in Silicon Valley are talking about it. Founders and investors around the world are still like are thinking about it. So we knew we were early, but that was also a time and an opportunity that we kind of over leveraged initially.
Got it. So the takeaway would be is that you guys were in the trenches, right? That is the right way to put it. You were exposed to these problems on daily basis, and eventually you figured one. Once you picked one problem or a multiple set of problems, you validated it. So that's like the takeaway of the founder is that don't just because one funny thing is that when I talk to founders is that I want to sign an NDA to talk about my idea. Like that's a really big turnoff for me because that clearly shows that this guy hasn't built products before or companies before, right? So let's say once you have idea, expose it to other people, take their criticism and advice, and go from there. I think that's it, right? So
I Yeah, I
yeah,
always say this. It might not sit well with everyone. The best thing that can happen to your idea is if there are other
it's
people who are already building on it. Like
yeah,
that is a validation. In fact, if an idea has already been funded and you're building something around it, that like nothing is more validating than that. Most people think that that's the race that they've already lost because someone already is onto it, but there's nothing new under the sun, right? It's all about execution. It's all
execution.
about how you approach it, how
Yeah,
you how you find that market, how you capture adoption, distribution. Like all of those
yeah.
things are very much big part of the business.
Amazing. So now let's jump into how did you end up with Capex? Explain to us what is Capex as I'm a 5-year-old. And because again, I like to really simplify things and then
Yes.
talk about how did you end up. So let's talk about Capex and then maybe how did you, or however you want to do it. How did you end up here and what is Capex?
No, so our thesis has been like extremely simple. I think that's also one of the reasons why we have been successful when it comes to pitching it to any and all age groups, any and all types and forms of people from different categories and industries. Our thesis is super simple. We went into an internet era in the early 90s. The next 10 to 15 years after that were people shipping websites, emails, and all these services around internet to kind of build that sort of foundation layer. And from there, we went into different phases. Now, internet, you can just call that Web 1. Web 2 was when we were able to interact with the internet and interact with each other. So the social layer came in. And the next biggest unlock, which we saw between, I would say, 2015 to 25, was the content creation era. So with the internet, we had all the tools. With socials, we had all the platforms. And with people having the ability to create content, we saw not companies, but brands being built around people. Currently, one of the biggest like accounts on YouTube and TikTok are individuals. They are not companies. Companies might be 10 times or 100 times better funded. They might have all the resources in the world, but people as content creators are doing way better on these or any platforms when it comes to selling products, when it comes to building brands, when it comes to like even selling some sort of a lifestyle or selling some sort of way of living. So this I think is the era of relatability where everybody wants to find things and wants to resonate with people more than brands, or with brands around people than brands around companies. And this is something which is now getting to another level now with AI into the picture. So we saw an era of people creating and owning content, and now the next is going to be people being able to create and own AI itself. So how everything that we interact with is going to be abstracted, right? Currently, all types of digital products that we see, websites, apps, any sort of blogs, we are not going to interact with them anymore the way we used to. Even today, if I see my user behavior, I go to ChatGPT than Google. I don't go to blogs. I don't read blogs anymore. I don't go read reports anymore. Even if I do have a report, I just upload it to ChatGPT and ask it to summarize it in 100 words. So our whole way to interact with the internet is going to change. There's going to be a time where we won't be using Uber to book cabs. We won't be going to Goibibo to book flights. We won't be going to Emirates to plan our whole itinerary and flights, cabs, and everything. We will literally be just going to this travel agent or AI agent, and we'll be just telling him that this is the trip that I want to plan. This is my budget. This is my credit card. Like, make things happen. It'll keep on giving me it'll keep on finding me discounts, deals, and it'll keep on suggesting me, and I'll still be the person who will be making decisions, but I'll just be making like very macro decisions. I won't be getting into the nitty-gritties of it. So I think how we will interact with the internet is going to change. And this is something which is a part of our thesis, is that this is not going to happen via companies with 1,000 employees. This is going to happen by some indie dev who's sitting in some part of Philippines, who has built this out in like probably 60 days. And now he has all the tools that he needs in order to build this. And you are now using his product, and there are thousands of others who are using his product. And you don't really care if this comes from Microsoft or Google or some sort of another conglomerate or MNC or any sort of startup. It could just come from an indie dev. So the cost of doing innovation has gone down. The cost of building things has gone down. The barrier to entry to build things has gone down. This is the same shift that we saw in the era of content creation back in the day, when creating content was not hard anymore, when you didn't need a lot of equipment like Casey Neistat, you just needed an iPhone. When you didn't need a lot of different platforms or deals with certain media houses, all you needed like a YouTube account. So we saw these barriers being broken before in the content era. So that's one way that we have found to sort of draw a parallel to, where how content creators blew the whole market up, and we saw like this billions of dollars of industry being created. And now the next era is going to be of AI builders, where we'll be seeing a lot of these AI builders being able to, or basically people who will be able to build tools, websites, products, agents, apps, everything within a few minutes with no code agents or low code agents or low code platforms. And they'll be able to ship and create businesses. And that's how even people will be more relatable. People find this more relatable. People will find this to be something which they can trust more easily, because they'll know who has built this. They'll find some relatability, and the next era will be single person $1 billion companies. That's what we believe. That's what Sam Altman has been saying for the longest time. That single person, 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, $1 billion companies, and then now you have all the leverage in the world to do that. So we at Capex are, you can say, we are building the very foundation for the next single person $1 billion companies to exist. So we are building the tools, we are building the platform for them to be able to launch this, the tools for them to be able to build this, and eventually a place where they could launch this, monetize this, and share the profits with people who would use it. So again, I don't want
Yeah,
to get into
yeah.
the details of it just yet. We can explore this further within this podcast, but that's I think the next shift which is going to happen.
Very interesting. So as you mentioned Naval Ravikant, so I'm pretty sure you're familiar with his philosophy of the three leverages of getting rich, and the third one is code and media. So I
Yes.
guess with what you have just explained, a code would be the leverage that people would use to get rich. Amazing. And I do agree that there is a shift happening because I myself use Perplexity. I'm pretty sure you might have used it. It just gives me
Yes.
exactly what I want. And I think this is something that with our generation or the generation coming after is that they just want things quicker, right? For example, we don't want to call someone for the food. We just want to open Talawad and do it, right? But imagine what one step more easier. So I do agree there's a shift happening. And if I were to put it simply, you guys are enabling that shift to happen and help build the next companies. That's really amazing. Before we start talking about more about your product, I want to stop here and try to ask some questions that would be relevant to our audience. In order to build this, it's good, but there needs to be money, there needs to be team, and then there are other things, right? So for the team, you share some information that you had a really good co-founder with whom you probably have trust. You guys had the skill set that complemented each other, and then given your background in building products, you were able to handle that. So and then recently you guys raised, I think that was $3 million. Congratulations on that. Do
Thank you.
share how important money is when it comes to making these visions a reality, and how did you guys go about it, and how others can do it, right? Because there are two ways. Either you can use your own personal money, keep bootstrapping it and get it to revenue and do it, or the other way is that get someone to give you money and you can achieve it faster. So let's talk about this, and then next we'll go to the team. How important money is in doing, or there's another philosophy that your team can survive on ramen noodles, right? You live in a small space, survive on a few meals. So what has been your experience, and how were you able to raise this money to build your vision?
Right. Um, I mean, that way, me and Hitesh, we kind of co-founded this. So I'd say like both of us have um, figured ways as to how we can like scale this and build this, especially initially. Um, Most of the founding team comes from the same college that we are from. So I would say something which has really worked for us well is that we went back to the same roots that we come from, and we kind of share this similar background to everyone who is part of the company. Uh, Now I've like started reading this a lot, but we like, implemented this 4 years back with the same sort of a mindset where you're not hiring people um, to work at your company like a job. At least the first 5 to 6 hires need to be people who look at themselves also as much of a founder of the company as you do. So
Skin in the game.
yeah, you, of course, like you can, sign a contract and say that you have skin in the game, but how do you make sure that that sort of a mindset is also propagated and resonated, and they feel as much part of the company as you do? So I think we did a good job with that initially. The very first few hires, they're still with us. They have been working with us and shipping with us for the longest time. And we know them, they know us, and that really goes far. When it comes to capital, capital is always an enabler. You cannot underestimate capital. In fact, how you run a company will change when if you have raised 300K versus 3 million versus 30 million. But I always say that I mean this is something which kind of is sort of mutual between me and Hitesh, that um, let's say we have raised 3 million, we operate like we have raised 300K, but mentally we are like we have raised 30 million. So it's sort of like also fooling yourself to believing that, money is not a constraint, but at the same time, not overexpending the initial any sort of, expenses, not, just being very not being frugal with it, but at the same time not being very um, just casual with like whatever amount that you might have raised. So I believe like we have been very smart with how we have used our capital. Hitesh has also put in some of his own money. So initially we were bootstrapped for some time. So I think that has really worked for us, where we have been very smart with the people that we are hiring. At the same time, we have been very smart with how do you want the capital to be used. Like one of the most like common thing in our space is that whenever conference happen, if you need speaking slots, you can sponsor the event and you get speaking slots. And this has been the case with almost every conference for the last 5 years, let's say. Now, our approach was that, okay, we can do that, right? Or how else can we get the mind share at a conference? So what if we were to like sponsor for a fraction of a cost, we could sponsor a small Starbucks cafe, put a standee there, and be like, okay, this is a code. You go there, you get coffee, you hang out, and you get exposure to Capex. You get to know what Capex is. Maybe even for like even a 5 second or 10 second or 30 second sort of a view you get, and you get like a free coffee. So that in itself would give you probably more impact than having to sponsor an event and be there on a stage where nobody is really listening, nobody cares, everybody will probably forget you in 5 minutes. But when you're sharing a coffee with someone, you'll probably have some sort of memory there attached to this. So I think we have taken some smart decisions around this, and we have always been like very mindful of how we spend. But again, yeah, capital is definitely an enabler. If there is someone who raises more, I think raising more is not about that you can now build better products. I think building product has nothing to do with how much you raise, but it just gives you more freedom to experiment with things. It just gives you more freedom to maybe start 5 different, small POCs and hit the market with it and see, okay, what works. So it kind of increases your speed to ship, or increases your speed to hit some sort of PMF, I think.
Yeah, and I think the hack that you mentioned is very smart. And if your investors are watching, they will be very happy, because the way you're spending the money is like it's your own money. You're not wasting it. So that's very smart of you. Just quickly, what was the process on how were you able to raise? Because normally the way people raise is, okay, because in your case, I think you bootstrap, so you might have a working product, but normally the way it goes is you have a deck, you have some MVP, and then you start talking to all these investors, and eventually someone will fund you. For the people that are watching and they're currently in the process of raising, because some products do need money, and there are some, I'm on the side of bootstrapping things. I'm on the team of like, I don't want to raise from anyone ever for the foreseeable future. I might change my mind in the future. So what is that process? Like someone who has an idea, has some traction, has an MVP, and is going out there talking to investor pitching, how can they, increase their chances of getting funded?
Right. So answer this to the best of my knowledge. I'm not a fundraise savan, but yeah, that's all,
But
Hitesh.
but
I'm
but
more
you
on the
but
product
okay,
based team
but you
side.
guys did
But
raise, right? So
yes,
that gives you
yes,
credibility.
yes. No, definitely. I can give my few cents, I think, which will probably help people who are raising at right now. With us, the kind of I would say the kind of intersection we are at, which is AI X crypto, and the product that we have, and the vision and our thesis, is it's a very high conviction play. So, as a founder, what you're trying to do is you are trying to find investors who kind of believe in your thesis. You're never going to them with a product. You are always going to them with the thesis, with the narrative, and how do you envision this to be, like, let's say, the next 100 million play or the next billion play. So you're kind of selling them the end vision. That said, um, the kind of product that we had, the kind of traction that we had, how quickly it actually blew up, all of those things did work in our favor. We were around 300K users when we started, going to the founders, and we had a working product. We could show them that what was going on our product. We had a testnet live, and all of those things were in place. So I think we had that sort of an advantage to us, of course. Um, but it was always trying to align with the investors and trying to find that sort of conviction that, okay, um, like, this is something that we are building. Can, like, how do you basically back this up and help us open more doors? And that was, I think, one of the ways that really worked for us. The other would be to build, relationships. And I think a lot of investing actually doesn't happen with pitch decks, but it happens over finding that personal relationships, and having that sort of trust and credibility built out. Because at the end of the day, they are not really investing in the business idea; they're investing in you. Because in this space, the markets are so, like, they're so uncertain. They're anyway uncertain even now in stock market at this point of time, but the markets keep changing. The what's working today might not work tomorrow. So at the end of the day, these investors aren't looking to put their buck on, like, saying that this idea is going to, like, make me 100 billion or whatever XYZ number. The idea is that they're they're backing more the founders, the team. So they want to know your story. They want to know that, you're not somebody who's just doing this for fun, or, like, you actually, irrespective of what happens to the market, irrespective of what happens to the product community or anything, you'll keep on, delivering, and maybe you'll pivot or maybe you'll not, but you'll keep on coming back, and you'll keep on, building in the space. So I think
Got it.
it all comes down to that sort of conviction, and
Right.
if they can get behind the idea and you more than what you have shipped as a product.
Right. So the takeaway for the founders who are currently raising is basically you need to build relationships and trust with the people who will eventually allocate capital or have the capital to allocate. It comes down to finding investors who believe in your thesis, not just someone who is willing to give you the money. That's something new for me. I haven't heard that before. And the third is have traction, right? Because I think one of the reasons could be that you had traction with 300K users is not an easy number. You who have 300 users and someone with a pitch deck, you are more likely to get funded, right? So that's when it comes to funding. And on the team side, if I were to summarize, you mentioned it's that uh, again, it's also the same thing, right? Trust. You mentioned there are people from your university or college who you have known for years and
Yes.
you trust them. And the second thing you mentioned was that hire people who will be there for the long term by, incentivizing them to have more skin in the game. I'm not sure how exactly you did it, but, we don't want to get into that. But eventually get people who would be loyal and would be with you for the longer. And if I were to summarize. Right. So that's covered team and investing. In the next, remaining minutes, I want to cover distribution. So again, you've explained what you're building. You explained how did you come across it. You got the money to build it. You got the team to build it. Now the main thing, right? Distribution, revenue. So how have you been able to acquire all these users, and what techniques are currently working? Because there's so many different ways out there. There's cold outreach, there is networking, there's airdrop campaigns, there's KOLs. There's so much out there, especially in our space, right? Ads and stuff that comes from Web2. How have you been able to what has been your go-to-market strategy, and what advice can you give to other founders that are building this AI X crypto space for their go-to-market?
Right. I think this was specifically true. To some degree, it's even true now. A year back, when we started, shipping some sort of early versions of the product, and we were still in the, I would say, alpha testing and then beta testing of this, we AIX crypto had all the hype, especially in Q3 and Q4. AIX crypto had all the hype. AI agents towards Q4 had even more hype. So I think we kind of did leverage that.
I think after GOAT and AI16Z and all these coins started coming out.
Yes. Virtuals, which is like one of the competitor, actually blew up in November, right? From November to January, they went like 10x, not 10x actually. They went like 40x or something.
Yeah, they went from 0.2 like $7, something like that. Right. The coin value, yeah.
So they did insanely well in the space, and that of course gave a lot of attention to all the other players. Now we had our testnet, our product and everything ready around that same time when all of the space was getting a lot of attention. So that we kind of piggybacked on that mindshare around AI agents and AI agent tokens, and we leveraged it, and we kind of moved fast in those months to ship the product, to have the testnet up and running, for people to be able to experience the product. Now, something which worked well for us with our GTM was that we kept our messaging extremely clean. Like even today, if you go to Capex Twitter or you go to our website, it's extremely simple: build, trade, and own AI agents, right? It's that one line. We are not trying to tell them that we're going to revolutionize the world. We're not trying to tell them that we're going to, like save dolphins and stuff. It's extremely simple. It's just one line: build, trade, and own AI agents. And that one line itself is good enough for anyone to tell in an instant that what this project is all about. And that keyword around AI agents is something which now everybody is very excited about. And with the ability to, of course, like there is always an ulterior motive around community to have an early upside when they're entering any sort of play. And that is true for us as well. That is like, a future airdrop, some sort of incentives, rewards. A lot of people within our community also want to contribute to the project, to be there for long term. So at the end of the day, even community wants some skin in the game, and they want to be early to these sort of plays. So all of that works in your favor as well. But with respect to product, with respect to our chain, something which we have been extremely mindful about is how can we make the experience so seamless that it's not 10 different steps or a guide that they have to read or some sort of thread that they have to read in order to participate in the testnet, incentivized testnet, or the product. It's everything is very intuitive. You just go to the link. You don't need any sort of Q-tips. You don't need any sort of guides or someone telling you that, some sort of tutorial video in order to like use the product. It's super simple. It's built on the user experience of existing Web2 apps. The login mechanism is seamless. It just uses Telegram. So if you have a Telegram account, within 30 seconds, you'll be inside the product.
Yeah, I did sign up. That was very good.
Yeah.
I used this tool called Bullix, and they also have a Telegram sign up. So that was very good, actually.
Yeah. And within a few seconds, you are very intuitively using the product, because this is not a product that you're seeing for the very first time. The user experience is something that you've seen tons of times, right? There's an app store which looks very similar to like how Play Store or Apple App Store looks like. There is a trading page which looks very similar to Deck Screener or let's say Binance, how Binance looks like. So there is nothing new under the sun, but the whole experience is around AI agents. It's and then there's a simple questing page or play page where you can earn rewards, you can earn points, and you can keep on you can keep on trading these AI agents for, future rewards and stuff like that. So that part we kind of nailed. And after that, it has been, of course, a lot of marketing campaigns, a lot of good partnerships. I would say that also helped us get more mindshare and tap into other communities. We partnered with some really good players. We integrated their tooling. We kind of had some long-term engagements with them. Even today, like we are working with Alora, Nillion, Zero G, and finding more ways as to how can we leverage what they have built and integrate that into our own ecosystem. So that is of course a continuous part, but it's also important to and the thing is that if the other partners are too big, a lot of times they might feel like, okay, how does this help us? Like if you have 100 followers on Twitter, 200K account would not find a lot of value. So you need to build that sort of credibility. For us, we had been working on this for more than 2 years. So we had a lot of credibility there. We had a working product, a test net which was live. So all of these things kind of worked for us. And when we went to other credible teams, it was sort of a mutual decision that, okay, this is going to benefit all of us. Like this is a win-win situation. It's a positive sum game, and it's going to be it's going to end good for all of us. So we did marketing campaigns with them. We did AMAs, podcasts. I mean, all those things are kind of standard, but more importantly, it's about what value can we bring to each other apart from just marketing partnerships, but like integration. So that all of those things, I think, combined worked well for us with our GTM. The only thing was that we were super quick about it. We didn't wait 2 months after the product launch to do these partnerships. We already had them lined up. And right from launch to the next 2 months, every 2 to 3 days, we had like a good announcement lined up. It could be with a product partnership. It could be a new agent launching on the platform, new tokens launching on the platform, some sort of campaigns, some sort of quest. All of these things were well planned out. And I think the very first 6 weeks were super aggressive so that we got like a huge mind share. Like even with our own Twitter statistics, we could see like the mind share, the engagement rate was like 30%. And there were some crazy numbers. We even got on platforms like cookie.fun, like with like crazy good numbers with statistics. So all of those things, like, just kind of like snowballs. So it all
Amazing.
helped us out. Yeah.
Right. So if I were to summarize for the founders that are watching that might be interested in their go-to-market strategy, is that the first thing you mentioned was timing. You've been building this product for 2 years. The AI wave came in and you were ready to launch, to ride that wave. So that really helped you. You did not really spend any money on that. It was just organic. So that's the first thing. The second thing you mentioned was build your product in such a way that it's very easy for users, right? So that is something very interesting, is that you're removing all the frictions for the people that come across your product to use that. So that's a very good advice as well. And the third thing you mentioned was that you were really fast at these partnerships, which you cultivated through having the credibility of being in the space from a long time. And the last was obviously the others. Did you guys do some ads, KOLs, collaboration? Did you guys do that, or it was not?
Zero ads, zero KOLs. We didn't spend a buck.
I mean, your investors will be very happy with you. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right. So, but just before we wrap up, I wish you the best of luck with Capex, and I am pretty sure you guys will be competing with Virtuals. I want to talk about that. You mentioned that Virtuals is directly a competitor, and for me, that was one of the first product I used. The first token I bought was AI16Z. Right, I did not got into Goat, but again, AI16Z did not have any product. It was purely through speculation. But Virtuals was the token that I bought that actually had a product. And, I could create these agents. I remember I created a few Twitter agents that were tweeting out the game. They have this game, I think, a game interface where you can program these agents. Wasn't that good? But yeah, do talk about that, and how are you competing, and what is the current landscape, and where we are headed, like in the coming 4 or 5 months. Obviously, there's tariffs going on. The markets are uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen after, I don't know, 70, 80 days remaining, the 90 days pause. but how you as Capex are navigating this, and then how other builders who are in the space, but I'm pretty sure I know a lot of them, how can they navigate through this? And eventually, when the market picks up, how would that be? And then and a follow-up question would be that, is the hype around AI agents still the same that it was like for in the beginning of the year and the end of last year?
Um, I'll address that one first. I don't think it is as much hype around AI agents as it was the end of last year, especially November and December. But I think we are going to get there eventually because the initial hype was more from a perspective of the fear of missing out, where everybody was like, they just FOMO'd into uh, every token that was launching, right, at the time. But now we're going to see more real value tokens. We're going to see more businesses with actual, I would say, with actual AI agents or AI apps which are functioning, which have some sort of a revenue stream, if not revenue stream, some sort of users, and not just going to be chatbots. So I think that is something which is going to change. The other thing with which you mentioned, since you mentioned virtuals, is that um, when I say that there are competitors, they are, I would say, the closest competitors, or the best way that, somebody who already know virtuals, I would probably want to explain them, is like that. But they they more fall into the category of a launchpad, like an AI agent token launchpad. And whereas on the other side, we position ourselves more of an ecosystem. Like, to begin with, the very big difference would be that we are an Ethereum layer 2. We are a blockchain which essentially enables anybody to deploy their contracts or launch their own token on our chain and become a part of the ecosystem. The other big offering for us is that we have something called Capx Cloud. Now, Capex Cloud exceeds the boundaries of the Capex chain itself. Capex Cloud is basically a service that any Web2 product, any Web3 product, anyone who has any sort of an AI app or any AI code base can use and deploy it and use that service, irrespective of whether they are part of our ecosystem, whether they want to launch a token, whether they want to use Capex chain or Capex app, irrespective of all of those things. Capex Cloud in itself is a standalone offering which is there for every AI app and AI agent out there in the world. So those two things itself are so strong and are moats which set us apart from projects like Waifu or Virtuals. And we are not even actively trying to compete with them. Another thing is that our whole launch mechanism is going to be different from how it is there for, let's say, Virtuals. We do not have plans to do, so far we do not have plans to do like a permissionless agent token launch, because then it just leads to garbage. Like Pump.fun has hundreds of thousands of meme coins, but the real value would be in probably top 100 or top 20 meme coins on the platform, right? So that's how, if that's a disparity, that the disparity is 0.0001 versus 99.999% of garbage. So there is no point in launching a platform which gives permission, which permissionlessly lets you just launch a token with absolutely no value behind it, and then you just become another, I don't know, Pump.fun for AI tokens, right? I mean, that nobody wants to see that anymore. So our idea of launching our platform is to have it more permissioned, to have more projects which are vetted, which have some sort of trustable business model, which have some sort of structure, which have a vision in place. So we want to keep that more curated initially, and eventually we can look into a place where it's maybe permission plus permissionless, some sort of a DAO structure, some sort of foundation structure. I don't know. As of now, it's too soon to say, but we can look into that. But initially, it will be very curated, because we want these agents which are launching on Capex to have very solid vision roadmap, some sort of a revenue model in place, maybe even a user base in place, and things like that. So those things will be very key, and that sets us apart from almost anyone else in the industry when it comes to AI agent tokens. There was another point that you addressed, which was with, I believe it was with respect to markets and
Yeah,
how.
like where are we in the, how do you see the current AI landscape, and then how do you see it changing with respect to everything else that's going on in the crypto markets?
Right. So I think the AI wave is going to come back, and it's like even now, irrespective of AI tokens, if you go on crypto Twitter, there's so much happening with models. OpenAI, Claude, and now we have so many Chinese models like Quen, and DeepSeek, which almost every week is like there's some new update which comes in. Kling AI comes up with this new revolutionary video generating model, and then Sora will comes out with an update. So it's the AI. I would say the AI hype is nowhere close to being over. In fact, it's just going to ramp up in the next couple of years as more and more image generation, video generation, code generation, specifically code generation, because that part it's going to like change so much topography of how dev shops work and how major companies hire talent and manage talent, right? So that part is going to be extremely disruptive. So the AI hype is nowhere close to being over. Now, how that translates and seeps into AI tokens is something which is still we still need to wait out and see. But I think the and this is something which is also cyclical with markets, that it always starts with FOMO. Even the NFT market, that's what happened. It was just JPEGs initially, and then everybody was like, okay, do you have a roadmap? Are you going to do something with these JPEGs, or am I just going to buy a JPEG? So the same thing I think we're going to see with AI tokens as well. Initially, it was like just put out a garbage token and everybody will be like, okay, this is AI agent token, so this will give me some sort of return. But now people will question and be like, okay, is there a functioning product? Is there some sort
Yeah.
of roadmap? Is there a revenue model or things like that? So I think we're going to transition into that, but it's definitely not over. It's going to come back probably. I hope it would be probably the same frenzy, but even if it's not, I think we are at a point, we've positioned ourselves at a point where we'll always have the advantage of having more value than fluff when it comes to any sort of AI agent token launches.
Amazing. So you're very bullish on this sector. Amazing. And I think you've given me a refresh as well, because ever since this market, I've been looking at fundamentals. I'm looking at projects that like Hyperliquid, Jupiter. Like for me, and again, we don't have enough time where we can get into that conversation later, because I do think you guys will launch a token as well. So I'm always looking at products that are generating revenue and have some sort of tie with the token, because that's, I think, will survive regardless in the market. But again, thank you so much for sharing all this advice. I'm going to add all your links in the description below, but is there anything you want to share with the people that are watching that might be interested in learning more about Capex? Are you hosting one of those coffee events again soon?
Not anytime soon, I guess, but we have something for token. If anybody is, traveling to Dubai for token, we are doing like a 3-day crypto paddle day. So
Oh,
anybody
paddle.
who, yeah,
Yeah, I'll be there.
anybody who plays paddle, yeah, I would extend the invite to you as well. Like I'll share the link in the DM. So just they can register. It's going to be like a limited slot, but it's going to go on for 3 days. And yeah, they can come around, just play paddle with other founders and VCs, and just have a chill morning, I would say.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tyagi, for coming on today. With that, we'll wrap up the episode. I hope you found this conversation as insightful and inspiring as I did. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much, Talha. Thank you so much for having me. Cheers.